Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Certainly, I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy.
Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Just think, this dundering dillweed almost became the Vice President of the United States. Hey, I'm Pastor Marty, and this is the Afternoon Drive. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, and once you are, smack that bell. Click the word all. That will give you notification of my rants, my ravings, my undeniably flawless reasonings. Hey, please like and share this video. That's the way that we get the word out that we're here. I don't have any merch to sell you. I'm not coming after you for a Patreon subscription or buy me a cup of coffee. I do this because I do this. I am a staff of one. This is not a talk podcast. This is a thought podcast. And if my opinions make you mad, oh well.
Warning, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
So Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who was the one-time VP presidential candidate with Camilla thinks she's a hottie Harris, they burned through $1 billion in 107 days. 107-day campaign. Kamala's written a book that, 107 days wasn't enough. I'm sorry, Kamala, you didn't realize that being on the job for 4 years was also part of the resume. You had 4 years plus 107 days to run for the job. The fact that you burned through $1 billion, you now have cover. You could write a follow-up book. Tim Walz burned through $1 billion because it's exactly what he's done now in Minnesota. When a scandal is so bad involving a Democrat that even Democrat-friendly spaces will not give you cover, when it's not just simply the New York Post, but the New York Times, the Washington Post coming after you, then that means there's literal blood in the water. It's real. They're not covering for him. Because, number one, they don't want him to throw his hat in the ring and run in 2028. And they need him gone because Democrats are realizing that if they're ever going to get back in any type of real national power again, that they've got to shore up their blue zones to make sure that they can fend off and overtake, which would come not just simply from MAGA and the right, but also the socialist Democrat progressive loons that are on the rise within their party and thwarting all of their efforts to, stay that corporate soft money, corruption that they've gotten so accustomed to over the past near half century that they know that a guy like Tim Walz, he poses a problem. So here's the deal. It goes back during the COVID era that there was a fraud of such unbelievable size that even the New York Times is calling out Tim Walz on it because it happened literally on his watch. An agency of the state government called the Minnesota Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services was giving money, in particular, about 90% of it was budgeted towards Somalis in the Twin Cities, who were in turn taking that money and they were sending it back to Somalia, back to Al-Shabaab, a terrorist organization. So Minnesota, taxpayer, welfare money, $1 billion worth was going back to Somalia to fund terrorism. Now, no one is saying that Tim Walz directed this or even knew about this. But what we've got now is a report that has come out that literally hundreds, that's hundreds plural, hundreds of state employees are coming forward and saying, hey, we tried to blow the whistle on this. We tried to alert the governor that this was happening. And instead of him inviting an investigation into corruption and fraud, what he did was he came after state employees that brought this up, that he would go after us. He would fire whistleblowers. He would have them demoted. He would have them doxxed, etc., etc., etc. Remember, this is Governor Snitch. This is one of those guys like a Gavin Newsom that during COVID, he got on his little power trip. See, all these little nerdlet governors, and not just blue ones, there were a few red ones too, like Mike DeWeiner in Ohio, that these little nerds that had been nothing their whole lives, especially like in school. This was the dude that got the sand kicked in his face on the beach. Now all of a sudden, they as governors, they found themselves in this authoritarian position where no one dared question their COVID mandates. And one of the things that Governor Walz installed was the snitch line, where you were to call up and turn in your neighbors if they had too many visiting cars coming to their property, too many visitors in their home, if they were outside when they were supposed to be inside, etc., etc., etc. It takes you back to a certain Aryan country that a guy like Nick Fuentes, the Latino white supremacist, loves to, give his Yahtzee hail to as, do you have kosher people living in your neighborhood? You better turn them in. And that's exactly what Tim Walz was doing in Minnesota. And so the allegation now is pretty straightforward from state employees. Hey, this is bad. You need to stop this. It's so bad that the New York Times is pointing it out, and CNN actually performed random real journalism and tried to ask the governor about this.
Do you take responsibility for failing to stop this fraud in your state?
Certainly, I take responsibility for putting people in jail. Governors don't get to just talk theoretically. We have to solve problems. And I will note, it's not just Somalis. Minnesota is a generous state. Minnesota is a prosperous state, a well-run state. We're AAA bond rated, but that attracts criminals. Those people are going to jail. We're doing everything we can. But to demonize an entire community on the actions of a few, it's lazy.
Gentlemen, Ciccolini here may talk like an idiot and look like an idiot, but don't let that fool you. He really is an idiot.
Yes, when asked, hey, $1 billion sifted through your state, your answer is, oh, we're so good at collecting taxes and we're so generous that we appeal to criminals to come here. What? We're so good at collecting money. We invite thievery. That's what he's saying. And then, of course, somehow it's Donald Trump's fault. Later on in the answer, Donald Trump, alienating an entire group of people and vilifying an entire group of people. Well, okay, because it was one mass group, the Somalis, who were taking the money and sending it to terrorists. You think that's got anything at all to do with it, Timmy? But again, nobody has ever really accused this guy of being, what's the word I'm looking for here? Oh, yeah, bright.
We knew Tim Walz was a disastrous VP candidate. He's a dork. He's very annoying. He's supposed to be this everyman, but doesn't know.
Not smart.
Not very bright. As the president used a different word for that. But the oppo, the research that should have been done during the campaign, should have brought this up. This is a huge bombshell that not only does he have all those negative characteristics, oh, by the way, his government was also funding terrorists and Al-Shabaab in Somalia. That should have been devastating for the Harris-Walz campaign.
Now, he raises a great point. How did Team Kamala not understand this, not get this, what a liability this was going to be, how this could have literally blown up? And again, though, you have all these state employees that we're told now in the New York Times, they gave all the information they had to the Harris campaign to say, hey, you don't want this guy. Members of his own family came out, Walz against Walz, during the presidential campaign. They knew this guy was corrupt. He was a liar. He lied about his service, his rank in the military. You had people thinking that he was some kind of football coach when in reality he was a volunteer dad, jockstrap, wash guy. He's just an absolute fraud and a liar. And trust me, J.D. Vance didn't have to break a sweat debating this guy.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
I'm not a smart man.
And he is such not a smart man that, again, to show everybody, this was going to be the answer to Donald Trump. The Democrats knew in 2024, they were hemorrhaging the male vote, in particular, young white males that like being, what's the word I want here? Oh, yeah, male, doing guy stuff. So they put Walz out in the field with a shotgun to show us what a big hunter he is, and it becomes glaringly apparent he hadn't got a clue what to do with a shotgun.
And it never fits quite right.
Never fits quite right. Just not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when I was shooting a lot of trap because it has a kind of their patented thing, a kickoff. So when you get old, it doesn't hurt your shoulder as much.
I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
Well, this, of course, has prompted Donald Trump to basically say that Tim Walz is the R word. And that, of course, has now caused a stink, and the Democrats and people are saying, he's insulting a group of people. No, I grew up with that word. Used that word a lot as a kid. We called each other that all the time. And I could tell you back in the day, none of us were ever mean or made fun of anyone that had an honest-to-goodness learning disability. Someone who was born developmentally challenged. But we called each other that word. Because again, when you call someone that word, you're not insulting a group of people. You're looking at the person in front of you, and it's another way of saying, what are you, stupid? What are you, some kind of a moron? Only Donald Trump is driving the word home, because again, he's Donald Trump. He's tired of the word police. And when a reporter asked him, do you regret your choice of words? Classic Donald Trump not only doubles down, but he doesn't even acknowledge that using that word is a problem. In fact, in classic Donald Trump trolling, it's out of his great compassion for Tim Walz of wanting him to get help that he used that word.
Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
Because you don't think that...
You have a problem with him? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into his state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
Only Donald Trump. So Tim Walz, up to his eyeballs. Is anything going to really come of this? Well, no, but he's not going to be able to run for a third term as governor. And again, that's not even what the Democrat Party behind closed doors is all about. again, the media loves to talk about this infighting happening in the GOP right now. You got the whole Kash Patel, Dan Bongino thing going on over at the FBI. Personally, I think both those guys ought to just, resign, go away. You've got the fight. Marjorie Taylor Greene is going back to Georgia because she's a principled person who, after 5 years of service, is qualified for a lifetime full-time salary. Good timing there, Marjorie. I was going to say a certain thing about certain kinds of women. Once they get paid, know when it's time to walk out the door, and that's kind of what Marjorie's doing here. She's just another Liz Cheney. Nobody in the media, though, talks about that. What the Democrats do is they don't get caught up in a drama of infighting and letting it leak out for the world to see. They just knife their own in the back, like they did to Andrew Cuomo and like they're doing now to Tim Walz. This has come out in the New York Times. This is coming out, and they're letting all the information out that this guy was warned about this problem, and he let it happen on his watch. $1 billion to Somali people because he wanted their vote, and he didn't care about the corruption or the fact that it was funding terrorism. And this is all designed to kneecap him by his own party to tell him, we don't want you representing us anymore. Go away. For those of you that might be wondering, is this guy really a pastor? Why don't you come pay us a visit the next time you're in Macon, Georgia? I'd love to see you. I'll save you a seat.